And now, a Fox Carolina First Alert Weather Day update.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Brian Bachman here. I want to get you up to speed. We have a tornado warning just issued by the National Weather Service. This currently includes portions of Elbert, Franklin, and Hart counties until 4:30 this afternoon for this cell right here, just northeast of the Sandy Cross area. I'm going to step off screen so I can move the radar around here for you, get you a better angle on this storm, but here's the latest, what we have in effect. Again, a tornado warning currently in effect until 4:30 p.m. This issue just a few minutes ago from the National Weather Service. It includes portions of Elbert, Hart, and Franklin counties. This was a storm that is capable of producing a tornado located near Carnesville and moving southeast at about 10 miles per hour. So you can see the worst of this storm here right now, sitting really the worst of it beginning to move just east of the greater Carnesville area, just south of Livonia as well, and north of Cannon. That storm, in addition to potentially producing a tornado, this has been radar-indicated rotation so far. Storm is also capable of producing torrential downpours as well as up to quarter-size hail. So if you live anywhere in Elbert, Franklin, or Hart counties, it's critical that you get to your shelter as soon as you possibly can. Lowest level of your home, that's going to be the best bet, but any kind of an interior room on the lowest level of your home will provide you some kind of protection, whatever gets you kind of away from windows and the potential dangerous winds and debris that may be flying around in a storm like this. Just getting an updated radar scan. Again, there you can see, for those of you who may just be joining us, tornado warning in effect until 4:30 this afternoon. This includes portions of central Franklin County, northwestern Elbert County, and southwestern Hart County in northeastern Georgia. The cell, you can see the worst of it right sitting just north of the Cannon area here right now. These more intense shades here indicating that. I'm going to switch over to our velocity scan here and see if we can get a better look inside the storm here. And actually, we'll put this back on radar here for a moment. Let's zoom back in from the wide view, and you can see what we have. We'll put the radar in motion here, too, so you can see this storm, by the way, not a particularly fast mover. It's only moving off toward the southeast, this particular storm right in here. This is the tornado warned storm moving off toward the southeast currently at only about 10 miles per hour. So if you're in the Cannon area, now's the time to be getting to that lowest level of your home. Folks in Carnesville, while the worst of it appears to be moving just east of you, get to that sheltered spot and stay there, because as you look off toward the northwest, you can also see here, just to the northwest of Carnesville, we do have another intense downpour, another strong storm that'll be rolling in. Not necessarily tornadic, but still just warranting you making sure that you are staying in the lowest level of your home. As we take a look at the projected path here on this particular storm, let me freeze the motion and we'll put exactly a storm track on it, give you a better idea. Again, not a fast mover, moving only southeast at about 10 miles per hour. So folks in the gold mine area, northeastern Georgia, over toward Royston and Newburgh, this storm is going to be heading your way. Gold mine by about 417. So that still sounds like it's a bit further away from you there, but nonetheless, I want to make sure that you're getting to your sheltered place right now. Royston 424, and then eventually off toward the Newburgh area by about 446. Let's put the radar back into motion here. And again, just for folks to refresh you here who may just be joining us, this is a tornado warning currently in effect for central Franklin County in northeastern Georgia, as well as portions of Elbert and Hart counties. If you're in any of those three counties that I mentioned, you want to make sure that you get to your shelter as soon as you possibly can. This is a storm capable of producing a tornado. There has been some rotation indicated so far by radar with this particular storm as it moves off toward the southeast, as we kind of reset the frame there for you. Actually, the radar, the warning box there, I should say, pointing directly to the cell in question. That one, again, moving off toward the southeast, 10 miles per hour. I'll zoom in a little tighter. We can get some cross streets. Also, the Bowersville area, sitting essentially kind of on the leading edge into the worst of that storm right now. Make sure that you are in your safe place, lowest level of your home. The storm not only potentially capable of producing a tornado, but also capable of producing quarter-size hail as it moves slowly off toward the southeast, 10 miles per hour. Of course, in any kind of a tornadic issue, the bigger concerns are for things like flying debris. That's why we say not only is it most important to get to that lowest level of your home, if you live in any of those areas around Cannon, Bowersville, and even Flat Shoals, you're not quite into the most intense part of this storm yet, but as you can see there, it's just beginning to at least come down a bit there along Georgia 366 approaching US 29. So if you're in those spots, that storm will be heading towards you here momentarily. So good idea for you to make sure that you're getting into your shelters there as well. Again, lowest level of your home, basement is ideal if you don't have one. That lowest level, an interior room, maybe something like an interior closet, an interior bathroom, something that'll help you put as many walls between you and that potential tornado as possible. Fortunately, I will say this, we have not received any kind of confirmation from the Weather Service or anything, any kind of ground reports that suggest that anything has touched down, but that, of course, is something that we don't want to take any chances with here since the storm has shown some signs of some rather significant rotation. So to reset again here for folks who may just be clicking us on, this is in northeastern Georgia. We have a tornado warning in effect for portions of Elbert County, Franklin County, and Hart County. This will be in effect until 4:30, so we've still got roughly another 40 minutes or so on this particular storm as it moves off toward the southeast at about 10 miles per hour. It's a slow-moving storm. You can see it's situated right in between Livonia and Cannon. Looks like a large downpour there. I don't see a very pronounced hook echo, which is a fortunate thing, but some of the radar scans have indicated some concerning levels of rotation within the storm, so that's why the Weather Service has opted to issue that particular tornado warning. I'm going to reset the view here just to kind of bring it back out to the wider shot so we can kind of frame everything up because, while we're not expecting widespread issues with severe storms, this is part and parcel of a larger wave of activity that's going to be moving through the area here over the next several hours. We have, again, really just that one tornado-warned storm in those areas, portions of, portions of Franklin, Elbert, and Hart counties, Stevens County not included in this warning, but larger portions of the line extending farther toward the northeast, not severe, but at least bringing some storms in just northeast of the Clemson area right now. Fresh set of downpours rolling in toward Travelers Rest, north end of Greenville. So most of us will at least be picking up a few more heavy downpours, likely at least a few passing showers or some thunderstorms, but our main area of concern right now really is on that tornado-warned storm in portions of northeastern Georgia. So why don't I take you back to that, regroup here just for everyone here who may just be hopping in with us again, just to refresh. Tornado warning in effect until 4:30 this afternoon. This currently applies to portions of Elbert, Franklin, and Hart counties for that storm that you see there right in the center of the screen, the arrow pointing directly to it as it is positioned just over the Cannon area, immediate north side of town. Bowersville, you're deep within this storm here as well as it's running in. Looks like right along Georgia 51 there toward the Flat Shoals area. All of those towns I mentioned, now's the time you want to make sure that you are in your tornado shelter. Again, I know some of this, for folks who have been with us a lot, it might sound a bit repetitive, but certainly something that bears repeating. Shelter on the lowest level of your home. If that's a basement, that's about as ideal as you can get. Or at least an interior room on that first floor, something that gets you far away from the windows, preferably something that has, a fully enclosed room, maybe something like an interior closet, an interior bathroom to kind of get you put between you and the tornado as many walls as possible as that potential tornado rolls on through the area. Again, to reiterate here, right over the Bowersville area, Cannon, we're seeing this most intense part of the storm setting up right now. No kinds of confirmation from the Weather Service or any ground spotting of any kind of a touchdown of any sorts. This has all been radar-indicated rotation thus far, but something, of course, that we want to be paying especially close attention to and not something we want to be waiting for a confirmation on for folks, again, in Franklin, Elbert, and Hart counties to be getting to their shelters. I'll zoom the view back out here again so you can see while it is applying to that particular storm sitting between the Livonia and Royston areas right now, the larger warning encompasses areas towards Sandy Cross, Royston, over toward Bowman, And while not included in it right now, folks closer to the Hartwell and even Coldwater areas, if you live or travel in and around those spots, a good idea for you to be kind of taking shelter too, because even though the tornado-warned storm looks like it may just duck southwest of there, it's close enough that you certainly don't want to be taking any chances. Make sure that if you're anywhere around Sandy Cross, Carnesville, Livonia, Royston, Hartwell, Bowman, any of those I rattled off there, make sure that you are getting to your shelter as soon as you possibly can. I'm going to put a storm track on this here for you now and see what kind of time frame we are dealing with here as this storm works its way slowly off toward the southeast at about 10 miles per hour. Again, not a particularly fast mover here. This is going to be in the gold mine area. You're really getting into the leading edge of that storm as we speak right now, but locations a little further around. Let me redraw this again and get a more accurate path for you. This is going to be, folks, closer, again, gold mine. I think it's reading a funny portion of the line there. Gold mine, you're kind of on the leading edge of this right now. Places like Newburgh, closer to 443. But zooming in just to give you an idea of who exactly is dealing with it right now. Folks around Flat Shoals, it's likely raining where you are right now, and we will continue to see that storm head your way. We're putting up on the side of the screen here, too, a live look outside over Clemson right now. Not currently under a tornado warning in Clemson, but worth noting that this particular tornado warned storm is part and parcel of a larger wave of activity that's sweeping through the area here over the next few hours. And while, again, that storm in Clemson not severe, you could see that it was producing some pretty heavy rain in that area. And folks, region-wide this evening, whether you're getting ready to take to the roads, headed home from work, the kids have activities. I know some schools back in session here, of course, just for the first time here today. Be checking, especially in those tornado-warned areas, to see, what the situation is there. But remember, too, also plenty, of course, the schools know exactly what to do in situations like these. So you don't want to be rushing straight out to the school. Let things ride out before you eventually head that way. But regardless, tornado-warned or not, bear in mind that the showers and the storms will be a factor in just about all of our weather here region-wide, going through probably the next 3 to 4 hours at their worst before gradually winding down later this evening. But let's go back to the storm we have on screen here. This, again, is the tornado-warned storm. I'll zoom out a little bit more to give you the full scope of the warning. This includes portions of Elbert County, Franklin County, Hart County in Georgia, northeast Georgia for some of you who may just be joining us. This is still in effect until 4:30, so we still have close to a half hour to go on this particular storm here. Pardon me, as it moves off toward the southeast at about 10 miles per hour. As of the latest radar scan we have here, it's kind of an elongated downpour here, not showing a particularly sharp hook, but some internal rotation has been concerning for the storm. Actually, here's a brand new scan. It looks like we may be getting a very subtle hint of some kind of a hooking feature closer to the western end of the storm, but nonetheless in Cannon and just south of Bowersville right now, you can see that there's a very intense downpour. This storm also, in addition to potentially producing a tornado, it is capable of producing quarter-size hail, and that's likely happening right along the immediate east side of the Cannon area right now. So those spots, Flat Shoals, Gold Mine, even Royston, while you're not necessarily in the worst of the storm yet, that's why now's the time to make sure that you're getting to your shelter. Also worth noting here, too, that even behind this particular cell, that tornado warned cell that you see right over the Cannon area, you see back off toward the northwest of that, right over Carnesville, there's a new wave of storms kind of rolling in right behind this. Not clear if we have any rotation with this in this right now. We have not seen any suggestions yet that there have been, but nonetheless, excuse me. Something that we'll keep an eye on, and just bear in mind that even as the tornado-warned cell passes you in Cannon, a new fresh set of downpours and some intense rain as well as some gusty winds may be coming in with that as it rolls on through your area. Let's reset here one more time. I'll take us back out to the wide view just to give everybody here a fresh reference here. As we can see, this particular tornado-warned storm is currently part and parcel of this larger wave of activity that I was referencing a few moments ago here. You can see that red box there, again, in northeastern Georgia, indicating the tornado warning. But as we saw in our Clemson cam a little bit ago, some intense downpours, a strong thunderstorm coming through there. Folks closer to Greenville, Spartanburg, it's not an intense storm, but still some rain getting ready to come back on down here, going to make for some wet commuting and back into the mountains here as well. I'm actually now joined in the studio by meteorologist Chrissy Kohler, so we'll be talking back and forth a little bit as things go on here. But, as kind of we've been illustrating here the last few minutes, Chrissy, definitely something where we want folks to region-wide here at this point not let their guard down, even though it's just for a lot of us some heavier downpours, some gusty winds. Just takes one storm like that to quickly potentially get a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know, Brian, you've been talking about this since that warning was issued just a little while ago. But this is in an area, 85 right there is a highly populated area where we're seeing some of this rotation pass over and some of that lightning on the backside of that, where we've seen that kind of move through a very populated area we see a lot of cars there on 85. So this is certainly a concern. As you were just mentioning, the folks headed home from school. This is prime time for parent pickup time. So I know that this is a big concern for those parents in that area right now.
Yeah, very much so. And, one thing we want to illustrate, I can certainly understand the parental, want to head to the school if the kids are still there, make sure they're okay. But of course, the schools, they have their safety protocols. They'll be getting the kids to their shelter. So the safest thing you can do right now is, tough as it might be, wait it out, and then eventually, once that it's safe to go, once the warning has expired, once the storm has passed, then you can go on ahead and go get the kiddos from school. But the schools certainly know what they're doing in a case like this. Bringing up on the other side of our screen there, you can see a lookout over Lake Hartwell. This is at least a portion of that storm. You could see it producing at least some darkening skies there. It looks like a more distant, heavy downpour. Does not appear to be raining, at least not terribly heavy, directly in front of our camera here. But, give or take, our camera is roughly in this area here. So that would kind of make sense with those distant downpours kind of on the immediate eastern side where our camera is of that particular storm.
So, Brian, just wanted to point out, they just updated the box, the size there. As is typical with these tornado warnings, they're issued for an extended period of time. So we want to make sure that people are getting the latest information. And as you see, the box right there behind Brian has been, it's been decreased in size.
Right.
Because that threat area, now they're letting the folks on the backside of that where the rotation has already passed through, kind of let them know, hey, the warning has passed, the danger has passed, you can start to come out from your safe space cautiously, because you never know what kind of damage may be awaiting you, even outside your home. But that's some good news there that we're starting to see that box peeled back.
Right, and that actually would apply to areas that have just been taken out of the warning. It was originally issued when the storm was back over Carnesville, and Carnesville appears to be out of that now. But I do want to stress here, while the tornado-warned portion of this storm has passed you, as you can see, there's still quite a bit of intense rain, some strong thunderstorms coming through there with some heavy downpours. It is still actually a severe thunderstorm that we're dealing with in that area. It just seems now, based on some of these more recent radar scans, that the activity is starting to almost coalesce together here rather than being individual cells. Looks like our tornado-warned segment may be being overtaken to some extent by this faster-moving line behind it. So, again, what that can do to the internal dynamics of a storm, that could certainly help to add some more energy to rotation. So that's why, while scaled back, while the main tornado threat has been scaled back a bit farther southeast, you certainly want to stay in your shelter in places around Sandy Cross. We've been talking about the Bowman and Cannon areas. Stay in your shelter there. You are still under this tornado-warned storm. Bowman, there it is. Actually, you can see right there. While it may not be doing anything where you are right now, you probably have some darkening skies all around your northern and western horizon there. Just critical that you stay in your shelter there. And even in the Hartwell area proper there, you're just outside of both the severe thunderstorm and the tornado warning box here. But when you're that close, just a good idea for you to be making sure that you're in your safe space too, even over folks closer to the Coldwater area, as all of this is eventually moving off toward the southeast, albeit slowly, at about 10 miles per hour from now. We'll see if those new cells, maybe if they're moving a little quicker, we get an update on that shortly.
Well, and I'm going to zoom this out for you because now we have another severe thunderstorm warning a little further downstream there.
That's right.
That you
Just
see
south.
just outside of our area. But that does indicate that at least the atmosphere is primed for these at least severe thunderstorms possibly to continue there. There's a decent amount of energy, at least still ongoing across that area, which is, of course, a concern. And, you're talking, Brian, about just staying in your safe space and all that. We still have that severe thunderstorm warning for that area as well.
That's right.
So even if you're not in the tornado warning area, we still have gusty winds as well as the hail possible with these storms moving
Right,
through.
quarter-size hail. That's what the statements have been repeatedly mentioning is also an issue. So, tornadic or not, still very much a big threat, as you mentioned in those areas, Chrissy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to see if I could find any damage reports. It may be a little too early at this point to kind of get any of that. Haven't been able to see anything necessarily coming through on social media. But, you had mentioned just kind of seeing the latest on where exactly or what the movement is on this. So I'll give you that here and get you some information on exactly how fast this cell is moving. This is currently headed southeast at about 40 miles per hour is
So
what
it's
that
picked
cell
up
is
speed
moving.
since that initial warning. It was going at 10 when it was that lone cell that we were talking about when we first hopped on for coverage here, but it appears now it's more likely that that line coming in behind it is caught up to the whole thing and is now pushing it ahead a little bit faster. So we got places, we have the Bowman area, 416, so that's about 11 minutes from now. Again, we mentioned just a moment ago, didn't look like much was going on there at the moment, but this whole line, regardless of tornadic or not, is going to be moving into that area very shortly. The Goss area, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, 426. Elberton closer to about 433. We got the Bell area closer to 448. Granted, these last two, Bell and Broad, are a bit farther down and past the end of the warning time, but that storm will reach you one way or another. So already a good idea if you're in either of those spots too, to be at least thinking about getting to your shelter or getting ready to head there pretty momentarily. And to go over the tornado safety tips here again one more time, it's a little repetitive, I understand, but always worth repeating. Lowest level of your home is best. A basement is absolute best place to go. That'll get you below ground where it's a bit safer. You're out of the potential worst of the harm from those winds. But lowest level of your home at least if you don't have a basement to go to. And make sure it's an interior room, by the way. You see that second note there. Get to a room that doesn't have windows because certainly, any kind of debris that gets picked up in the strong, potentially tornadic winds, obviously that could smash a window easily, and then you have that many more pieces of potentially dangerous material flying around. Cover your body. If when you head to shelter, you can quickly grab a blanket, something like that, and fully wrap yourself up, wrap the kids up, anything like that. Anyone who's going to that shelter, the more cover you can put on your body, better for you. Make sure to protect your head. If you've got some kind of a pillow, a cushion, something that you can at least, or just kind of wrap your arms around your head, that's also a good thing to do. And not maybe necessarily as applicable for folks who are watching us right now, but if you're listening to us on live stream and you're driving through this area, also a good note here to remember, don't ever try to outrun a tornado in a car. It might sound like it's easy enough to do, but one, it may be very difficult to spot the tornado, I think, especially in a situation like this, since we don't have a really well-defined hook here. If there is some kind of a tornadic circulation with this, it's likely rain-wrapped, meaning you likely won't be able to see it coming. And not to mention, it's likely coming at you faster than you can perceivably tell. Not to mention, you're at the mercy of the roads. The roads may take you in and out of the tornado's path. So either way, don't try to outrun it. Try to get out of its path. More importantly, try to get yourself to a sturdy structure as quickly as you can. But if you're already in one, lowest level, basement is ideal, but at least that lowest level of your home. Thank you, Christy, for getting the rotation scan up here too. And actually, we have 2 points. A bit concerning here. This first one on the west side immediately of Coldwater. Granted, this one is moving out of our immediate area, but you can, actually I shouldn't say it's moving out of our immediate area. It's moving into Elbert County. My apologies. It's moving just east of the Bowman area over toward Coldwater. We get these reds and green shades next to each other. What this particular radar product does is it tells us which way, relatively speaking, the winds are moving within a thunderstorm. Red shades indicate winds that are blowing away from the radar. Green indicates winds that are blowing toward. So essentially what this roughly tells us is that we have some manner of wind that's rotating around in this general area. Christy, feel free to jump in if you have seen something that I have not, but I still have not heard of anything actually touching the ground, but this certainly concerning enough on radar to be making sure that you're staying in your shelter in cold water over toward the Bowman area too. And I also want to highlight this one. It looks like we may actually have a second area of at least some broad rotation. I'll let Chrissy zoom in a little bit tighter on that. It's directly over Royston right now. And again, not confirmed that this is on the ground, but at the very least, this is the most intense portion of this tornado-warned storm. You have, again, those winds that are generally moving southwest in this area and then moving northeast in this area. So you have the opposing winds, some general rotation going on here. That's right over you in Royston. Make sure that you are, if you're watching or listening to us from there, make sure you are in that safe space, and make sure that you stay there until the worst of this moves off toward the southeast of you. Also in the gold mine area, based on that southeasterly track, the worst of it may just miss you, but we're talking no more than a couple of miles here, so not something you want to write off in that spot. Gold mine, get to your shelter. Cannon, stay there if you're already there, or get there if you haven't yet. And in the Sandy Cross area, again, while you're pretty well removed from the rotation, still a severe thunderstorm moving through your area as it stands right now. Anything new coming in on that end, Chrissy?
I keep scanning everything, trying to see what exactly is going on there. I apologize. Just trying to do a couple things at the same time. We've got, like you just said, these two areas that we're looking at here. I haven't seen a new warning been issued yet for that area that you were just talking about that has certainly that rotation on it up around Royston. It's still that area down into Elbert County that is, and we'll flip back to, and I'll throw up the borders for you so you can see that. Or I'm sorry, the Royston area is under the warning. The one down into Elbert County is not under the warning. But you're right, that is a very concerning. That could be that outflow boundary that we're talking about there from this particular storm that's trying to really kind of get itself together. That's a pretty interesting little signature, but I'm not seeing anything in terms of a warning on that particular one. But I think it's caught both of our eyes here as we take a look at that particular rotation right now.
Absolutely concerning enough. And one thing of note here, to get a little more technical, is at the distance we're using our radar site that's back at GSP Airport. As you start to get in toward northeastern Georgia, the radar beam tends to get higher and higher above the ground just by virtue of the way it works. So what we're likely seeing here is a more elevated area of rotation, but it's rotation nonetheless. There's nothing to say that rotation isn't reaching or couldn't reach the ground. So critical again around Elberton, Coldwater. You're not in the tornado warning right now, but this is not a storm that I would take lightly or wait much longer here to get to your shelter. As far as the tornado warning itself, still applies to portions of Franklin, Stevens, and Hart counties until 4:30. As we look back generally at this more kind of broad area of rotation, we could see that certainly coil up quickly. Tornadoes in a lot of cases, they don't have to be these long-tracked, long-lived, events. They can touch down for a minute or two, a mile or two, do their damage, and then quickly depart. We've seen a couple of cases of that even in our area earlier this year. You can see on the screen to my left over here, to my right, I should say. Your left, my right. It's all backwards. Either way, on the right side of your screen, you can see the Clemson cam that we pulled up here. You were in one of the heavier downpours with this wave of storms that's coming through the area here right now. Again, not tornado warned anywhere outside of northeastern Georgia, but still something that's going to impact folks getting on the roads, heading home, or trying to get out to their Thursday evening plans, whatever it may be. So as we see some of these heavier downpours, back toward places like Easley, Greenville, Spartanburg, again, nothing severe in those areas, but we could have enough instability that maybe one or two of these just has some gustier winds, certainly some downpours. So severe or not, just critical that you're making sure you're staying weather aware here over the next several hours.
Brian, we've been watching this for a little while now as it continues to kind of just evolve here, and a lot of lightning associated with this as well, which, yes. You and I, as meteorologists, there's lots of things that we're looking for when we're talking about these severe thunderstorms. And when you see kind of that intensity of that lightning really start to ramp up, it really does show that, there's a decent amount of instability over this area, yes. Just outside of South Carolina. Down into Georgia is where we're seeing some of these stronger storms that exactly right where Brian's pointing to. And when you see that kind of lightning really ramp up, that gives you that indication that, yes, we do have a good amount of instability to work with, which is then what leads to some of that rotation. It leads to these severe thunderstorm warnings. So it's one of the indicators that we look for kind of when we're watching these storms as they develop.
And even as you were talking about that, the lightning certainly potentially a big indicator of something intensifying. Looks like we have a new severe thunderstorm warning we'll get to
I was
here.
just turning those on for you because I realized they were off. So I wanted
Gotcha.
to make sure that they were there on the screen there.
But even kind of just the orientation that we see here, how you have more or less this northeast, southwest kind of line to most of these storms, but then almost a kind of a 90-degree turn here off toward the right. Sometimes when you have features like that, that could indicate differences in wind direction, or at least the winds that are feeding into these storms. And it's in those areas where you kind of get these bends, which does correlate with our tornado warning here right now. That's where we tend to get a little more concerned, because those dynamics could interact in just the right way to briefly spin something up. So that tornado warning kind of right along that little bend in the line I'm talking about here does not look particularly well defined, at least on this particular scan. But as we were showing you a little bit ago on the rotation scans, we're seeing some areas of concern. So enough to warrant continuing this tornado warning until 4:30. Sandy Cross kind of getting toward the tail end of this, but still please make sure you're staying in your safe space here right now. The Bowman area looks like the worst of it is still gathering just north and west of you. Lots of lightning strike activity with that. And in addition to the potential tornado threat, remember, the storm is also capable of producing up to quarter-size hail. So a storm that has destructive, damaging potential no matter what here. But Hartwell area, Bowman, back towards Sandy Cross, Cannon area, we've been mentioning too, Royston, all folks in those areas, make sure that you continue to stay in your shelter and ride this out until this moves off toward the southeast of you. Leading out ahead of it here, folks in Coldwater, as you can see, you're at least getting into a more significant downpour here, tapping into some of that instability that Chrissy was mentioning here. Looks like that prime zone where the atmosphere is most unstable, definitely lining up here with most of our northeastern Georgia areas. Another I want to mention here, in addition to Coldwater, while you are dealing with a storm right now, you're not in a warning, nor in the Elberton area are you currently under a warning, but with this moving southeast, this will eventually move your way. We'll ultimately see what the Weather Service decides to do here in probably about the next 15 minutes or so. But good idea for you to at least be getting ready to head to your shelter in Elberton too, because one way or another, these storms will be heading your way sometime, probably within about the next half hour to 45 minutes.
So, Brian, I just wanted to kind of check in and just let you know that I'm starting to see a little bit of information here, and it does look like this particular storm did have a funnel cloud on it. There was a funnel cloud spotted near Carnesville. They kind of, not necessarily the only thing that prompted it, but it was one of the pieces of the puzzle that prompted this warning. That funnel cloud spotted near Carnesville. Still no reports of anything specifically on the ground there in that area of northeast Georgia, but certainly there at least was some rotation, which you've been pointing out there on the velocity scans with that particular cell. Now, that was a little while ago, and that rotation, as you've been pointing out, is really kind of loosened up pretty nicely. So we've got that. I do want to take you over here. I'm going to take you over into this cell here in Pickens County, and I'm going to turn on the velocity for you because there is a little bit of broad rotation here as well. It's not necessarily quite as tight, but we've certainly got a little bit of an eye on that particular cell as well.
Yeah, just good to reemphasize, I should say, that no one should be taking any of the storms clearly at this point lightly. It only takes that one to produce a warning, but something's going on. The atmosphere clearly unstable enough here that some elements are trying to get going here. Just to kind of refresh you here, maybe if you're just joining us, this is our rotation scan here. This shows us how the winds are behaving within a given thunderstorm. The radar site is to the east of where I'm standing here. It's off screen. So what this shows us is red areas indicate winds that are blowing away from the radar site. And these little areas of green in here indicate winds that are generally blowing toward the radar. So if you kind of rough this out here, you got a big patch of winds that are more or less moving in a westerly direction here, while they're then moving easterly or southeasterly on the south end of this here where that green patch is. So some area, like Chrissy mentioned, of some broad rotation here. No warning or anything right now in Pickens County. You can see it just southwest of Pickens here, but these are the kind of features we're going to pay especially close attention to, watch for, since, we, again, just to reiterate, it doesn't take much, can spin up very quickly, quickly. A tornado can touch down for a minute or two, track across maybe a mile, and if it just hits the wrong area, of course, still plenty of time for that to do potentially a lot of damage. So Pickens area, Norris, and even over toward Easley, with that storm generally moving east-southeast. Again, not warned, but still a potentially more intense storm heading your way, and just something you want to make sure that you're getting indoors and getting from cover from as well.
Yeah, so I'm just going to zoom this out a little bit, Brian, to see if there's anything else of interest. Of course, we've got this, wow, that looks much, much better.
Yes.
We like to see that. That is a
nice and
much
broad.
better velocity scan there that you're looking at right there down around Coldwater. But it looks like we've got now a live picture. I believe this is Pickens.
Yep, this is in Pickens, where we were just talking about.
So you can see, of course, we've got the rain, that cell that you were just talking about, Brian. We're just to the northeast of that one.
Right.
So
The
this
cell's
particular
right there,
cell.
that broad rotation area right here, and then Pickens, of course, right there.
And let me turn on the radar for you so that you can see just kind of what they're looking at there. They're actually on the north side of this, so it just got hit with that heavy rain, and then now it's kind of lightening up. Although there is some more heavy rain on the north side of that that's going to head that way here shortly.
Yep, all this generally moving off toward the southeast. Easily, you're starting to get kind of into the leading edge of the more intense portion of this storm. Liberty, you're just outside of the worst of it, but with it moving off toward the southeast, generally you'll likely pick up at least a portion of this. And then, like Chrissy mentioned here too, northwest of the Pickens area, all of that will track in too. So, folks, really anywhere along the I-85 area, realistically, through the upstate into northeastern Georgia, these next couple of hours, certainly the next hour, are going to be a bit more critical for commute conditions here. And then the more intense portion with that tornado-warned storm farther down that line, moving through portions of northeastern Georgia. Chrissy, adding the lightning strike data here, and you could see just indicating that those storms, in addition to producing some torrential rains up to quarter-size hail we've had on a number of the statements with these storms, just also producing a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning. So can't stress it enough, folks. Get to your shelters if you're still in portions here of Hart and far northwestern Elbert counties. Chrissy will take us back to this storm a little more closely here. Again, this remains our tornado-warned storm here. Admittedly, just with the kind of funny dynamics going on here as this line has kind of overtaken the original storm, looks a little more muddied here, but a little area of concern like this here, this kind of little notch where the green cuts into the more intense oranges and yellows and reds here, could be some very kind of early signs that there may be some wind that's flowing into the storm here, could potentially produce some rotation. So that's why the warning here. And actually, as I say that, we get a new scan. A little more concerned, seeing a little notch like that. We'll switch to rotation, see if there's any backing. Still looks pretty broad in terms of how large scale that area of rotation is, but nonetheless, Bowman area, this is on top of you basically as we speak. So if you're watching us from there, listening to us from there, know anyone who's in that area, get to shelter yourself, or at least let folks know it's time to get to their shelters there. Stay there in the Royston area. You're moving toward the back end of the storm, but still torrential rain at the least, possibly some quarter-size hail mixed in there as well. And then depending on how this little notch here behaves, we'll see what the Weather Service opts to do here. We're coming up to expiration time in about another 7.5 minutes. The warning, tornado warning, still in effect until 4:30. So we'll, of course, at least stick with you through that point and ultimately see what the Weather Service opts to do. But plenty of reasons still to be concerned and making sure that you're hunkered down anywhere from Royston to Bowman.
And so far, we have no indication from the National Weather Service that they're planning to extend this. There's not any kind of word coming from them quite yet as to whether or not they plan to keep this warning going. Based off of what you and I think are seeing, Brian, we should be getting into the clear here at this point, except for maybe that notch does start to kind of generate over top of itself. The current radar trends show that, you would think that this would be expired, but at this point, cannot say for sure until we get to 4:30. I can tell you that at this point they're not going to expire it. Oops, excuse me, I took that off. They're not going to expire it early at this point. We are going to go all the way to 4:30, and we will be with you all the way to 4:30 because we want to make sure that even if something does try to spin up right before it expires, we want to make sure that you know what's going on here and that you have that information and are able to get to your safe space if you need to be in that space.
Right, and just to go over it, one more time here, for folks, if you're just hopping in with us here, this This is a tornado warned storm we've been tracking for close to 45 minutes or so here now. That's been moving through portions of Elbert, Hart, and Franklin counties in Georgia, excuse me. This worst of it here, this area that still seems like it's a fairly broad area of rotation, beginning to just move east of the Bowman area, but it's on top of you there. So for folks in that area, certainly, but even downwind of it here, ooh, that's looking a little more nasty here too, now that we look at that one. Still looks pretty broad. This, again, why don't I kind of reset the scene here for you. This radar data that we're showing you, this is what we call our velocity scan. It shows us the general behavior of the winds within a thunderstorm here, where you see these red shades. It tends to indicate winds that are blowing away from the radar site, which is kind of northeast and off screen here. Chrissy's going to put some arrows on to kind of help better visualize this. But you have winds that are more or less moving southwesterly in a southwesterly direction here, and then more or less northeasterly here. So if we rough that out, you could see kind of what we're dealing with here. This would be an area where certainly appears that there's at least some elevated broad rotation within this thunderstorm here, still a point of concern. But whether that's a tornado actually touching the ground or not, one, we have not gotten any indication or confirmation, I should say, that that's the case, but this would be at the very least where the most intense winds and the most intense portion of this storm would be. So cold water on south, even into the Alberton area. While you're still not actually in this tornado warning, this is still a very intense storm that's moving through your area, so good idea for you to be staying in your shelter. This is what I was going to get to before. Remember, that's the lowest level of your home. Basement is best, but if you don't have one, first floor, something that's interior, away from windows as far as you can get. We always like to use the rule, put as many walls between you and the tornado or potential tornado as possible. More, things to keep you safe, block any of that debris that may be flying around. If that's an interior bathroom or a closet, something you can close a door behind, that's best, but just make sure at all costs you try to get away as far away from windows as possible. We'll continue to keep an eye on that storm there, but a bit concerning based on the scans we're getting on radar right now.
And Brian, I want to let you know we've just gotten some video in. This is from Carnesville. Just fair warning, this is the first time Brian and I are seeing this, but this is video from Carnesville that was sent in to us here at Fox Carolina. And so you can see kind of that storm as it was rolling through the area. Again, this is the area where we did have a funnel cloud spotted. That was confirmed by actually a National Weather Service weather spotter. So those folks that are weather spotters are very well trained. To know exactly what to look for. Then they report back to the National Weather Service, hey, here's what's going on in my area, because boots on the ground is very valuable when it comes to the weather. Yes, we have radar. Yes, we can kind of, extrapolate from the radar what we're thinking we're seeing on the ground. But when you have boots on the ground who can report back to the National Weather Service and say, hey, I've got a funnel cloud in my area, that's invaluable information. So this is that same area where that funnel cloud was spotted by a National Weather Service weather spotter.
Right. And fortunately, those pictures didn't look like we certainly could see anything that looked like a funnel, but that kind of a sky, where you had that low-hanging cloud base at the very least, so we could have been, looking at least a portion of a wall cloud forming. That's where the funnel cloud tends to usually develop out of. So, of course, like Chrissy mentioned, radar shows us what we need to be concerned about, but it's folks on the ground, boots on the ground, who give us that confirmation. We can only see so much from the radar here, but we see enough to still be concerned as we, again, look at the radar and rotation scan here. South area, just south of Coldwater and just northeast of Elberton. This is generally moving off toward the east-southeast, so starting to tiptoe a little closer to the South Carolina line. Actually, Chrissy, if you could move us a little further east here over toward, this could be something that folks, Abbeville County, toward Lounsville, Calhoun Falls. Again, this is not a warned storm right now, but you've got some broad rotation dynamics going on in here, and with that south-southeast, east-southeast jog, the storms appear to be kind of wobbling as they move a little bit off toward that east-southeast direction. Around Lounsville, this is certainly something that could clip your area at the least. Calhoun Falls, it looks like this might be on a more direct path toward you. So good idea to be on your guard at the very least in these spots. Keep an eye on that western horizon, stay weather aware, and now's the time to be ready in those spots to potentially head for your shelter.
Yeah.
Just something to keep in mind.
And I'm going to bring you back to that Pickens one we were talking to earlier. Just a little check-in to see how we're doing over here with this radar velocity scan. And it's kind of the same as that one down around Coldwater, where
Right.
it's you've got a little bit of rotation there, but it's not super tight. We like to see it we don't like to see it, but in order for us to have a better indication that there might actually be a tornado possibly on the ground, you want to see that rotation a lot tighter than what we're seeing there. But it does indicate that there are at least some upper level winds there that are trying to get some rotation
Yeah,
going.
trying to do something, certainly there. But yeah, thankfully this appears to be pretty broad, but intense though. You know, you can kind of see the difference between the red and green shades here, but also of note, these are also showing the relative speeds of those winds. The darker reds indicating lighter winds, and these brighter shades of either green or red, regardless of direction, showing more intense winds. So you can kind of see, again, Chrissy, roughing out that broad area of rotation there, but we see these brighter greens, we see these brighter reds just on the immediate northwest side of Liberty, south of Pickens. This will be, if it's not already moving over 176, or is that 178? Having a hard time reading the number there.
178.
178. If this is not already sitting over that area, it's about to cross that road. So if you have to travel between Pickens and Liberty in the next half hour, we would say hold off on that. Wait till that storm at least passes east of you, because even though nothing tornadic necessarily going on with it right now, you still have some very gusty winds, no doubt some blinding downpours in that particular portion of the storm. And good idea to stay on top of things here, even over toward Easley, Cedar Rock, not necessarily in the direct path of this storm, but close enough to it with other storms northwest that'll be moving through. Critical everybody stays weather aware here as we continue to move into commute time.
And we've just gotten some new video, some other video in from Carnesville as well that is showing kind of that storm as it passed through that area. Again, I want to remind everyone that this is the area that the funnel cloud was spotted by an official National Weather Service spotter there. And this was video taken and sent into us here at Fox Carolina. We found this on Twitter. So yeah, you can see definitely those low-hanging storm clouds. You know, Brian, I don't know that I necessarily see any particular spot there,
Right.
but you certainly have a few clouds hanging down where, you know, it makes you pause for a second.
Right above the black truck trailer there, you can see a little tendrils, for lack of a better term, almost trying to appear to be maybe fraying away from the cloud base there. So tough to tell if that's any kind of rotation in there,
Yeah.
but like you said, Chrissy, a big point of concern nonetheless if that was what you were looking at, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, of course.
Zooming in.
Oh, there
maybe.
we go. There's a little zoom in for you. You know, it does look like that cloud is certainly trying to
Right.
to drop down. Again, it's difficult from this angle to really see much on that rotation. You know, when we get thunderstorms, we get a lot of different types of cloud formations. A lot of times, you know, we'll get scud clouds that people think are funnel clouds that just generally tend to hang kind of low there. So really being able to see the rotation well is important to being able to tell whether that was the exact funnel cloud that we were looking at right there. Not saying it wasn't, but it's just, I think from what Brian and I are looking at there, it's just a little harder to say for sure that that's exactly what triggered that warning.
Right, absolutely true. We're getting, actually it's 4:32 here now. Why don't we check in on that storm? Does appear, Chrissy, I believe the tornado warning has been allowed to expire.
Double check in and
Yep.
let's throw up those warnings again to make sure. And sure enough, we are expired. They expired the severe thunderstorm warning as well. So
Okay.
currently we have no active severe warnings in our area. Just outside of our area here, a little closer to Athens, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning there. It's going to be just outside of Elbert and Franklin counties. But
Right.
for our area, we are in the all clear here.
Yeah, still looking a little bit nasty. Let's zoom in on this real tight here, and then we'll step back, get you to well, news time at this point here. Again, over the Bowman area right now, no longer tornado warned, no longer severe warned, but still a nasty storm coming through there right now. Bowman right up to Coldwater and on the immediate north side of Elberton. And remember, this is moving off toward the southeast, so in Elberton proper, this is going to get pretty nasty here coming up with some intense downpours and frequent lightning. So everybody make sure that at this point, if you're hunkered down, ride out the rest of the storm, and it will be moving southeast of you sometime over the course of the next hour. We'll step aside now here and get back to regular programming. Let's get into the news.